In 2024, over 136 billion rupees were lost by Indian travelers due to rejected Schengen visa applications. Not because of fraud, but because of non-refundable fees tied to skyrocketing rejection rates. Behind this financial blow lies a deeper issue, a growing global discomfort with Indian tourists, rooted in concerns over behavioral norms, visa overstays, and illegal immigration. Countries like the U.S. and Canada have tightened entry protocols in direct response to rising incidents.
Don't get fooled by the label. Subscribe now to uncover what's really behind your favorite brands. And get the truth Big Food doesn't want you to see.
While Western media increasingly highlights cases of misconduct abroad, this cycle of rejection and reputational damage isn't driven by isolated events. It reflects a systemic shift in how Indian tourists are being viewed on the world stage. These challenges go beyond individual behavior. They're entangled with how India itself treats foreign visitors, and its limited success in projecting cultural soft power. While other countries like China have moved decisively to address similar issues, creating blacklists and enforcing public conduct standards, India continues to lag in offering a coherent strategy. The result is a feedback loop. Negative global perceptions lead to harsher visa policies, which frustrate travelers and reinforce those very perceptions. Breaking this cycle requires more than image control. It demands sustained cultural education, diplomacy, and a clear national commitment to reshaping how Indian tourists are perceived abroad. Indian tourists are facing a growing storm of criticism around the world, and it's no longer just whispers on travel forums or scattered headlines. It's systemic. In 2024 alone, Indian travelers lost over 136 billion rupees to rejected Schengen visa applications. Money gone, non-refundable, with nothing in return except a stamp of rejection and a message that's getting clearer. The global perception of Indian tourists is deteriorating. This isn't about isolated incidents. It's about a pattern of behavioral issues, overstays, illegal immigration, and strained political relationships that all feed into one narrative. One that harming India's global reputation and directly affecting its citizens' ability to move freely. Let's start with the numbers. The rejection rate for Indian visa applicants in Western countries has been climbing. Why? On paper, it's about security and immigration control. But beneath the surface, it's about perception. And perception is being shaped by more than just paperwork. When Indian tourists are consistently flagged for overstaying visas, it doesn't just affect those individuals. It taints the whole group. Governments respond not with nuance, but with blanket policies, tightened visa rules, higher fees, stricter scrutiny, and all of that becomes a tax on mobility, paid not just in money, but in dignity. And the cost isn't just financial, it's reputational. Countries like the U.S., Canada, and EU members are no longer just looking at applications. They're looking at patterns. And a growing pattern of overstays, asylum claims, and illegal entry attempts from Indian nationals is reinforcing harmful stereotypes. These stereotypes then drive policy, which drives rejection, which fuels more frustration and desperate behavior, locking India into a cycle that is difficult to break. But the issue doesn't start at the border. It starts with behavior. Too many stories are circulating from host countries about misconduct by Indian tourists. From public littering and cultural insensitivity to loud disruptions and social norm violations, these actions don't just leave a bad impression. They shape the expectations of immigration officers, hoteliers, local authorities, and even fellow travelers. In countries with stricter codes of public conduct, these behaviors aren't just frowned upon. They're seen as disrespectful and incompatible. This growing pattern of public misconduct is more than anecdotal. It's reinforcing a narrative that Indian tourists don't respect the rules of their host countries, whether those are social, legal, or environmental. And in an age of instant global sharing, one viral video or local complaint can travel faster than 1,000 polite interactions. Then there's the issue of reciprocity. India's treatment of foreign tourists is also under scrutiny. Reports of scams, harassment, and mistreatment of international visitors within India are spreading. And while these may be isolated, the international perception is that India isn't doing enough to protect or welcome guests. That matters, because when a country is seen as failing to treat visitors well, it loses the moral ground to demand better treatment for its own citizens abroad. India's global image is also being shaped by what it fails to project. Unlike countries such as Japan or South Korea, which have spent decades exporting culture, hospitality, and prestige, India has underinvested in soft power diplomacy. Bollywood may be global, but that alone isn't enough. A movie industry can't repair what poor tourism behavior and immigration violations damage. Meanwhile, China, a country often compared to India, has taken concrete steps to address similar challenges. They've created blacklists for travelers who misbehave abroad. They've launched domestic campaigns to educate tourists on respecting foreign cultures. And it's worked. International perceptions of Chinese tourists have improved noticeably, especially in Europe and Southeast Asia. India, by contrast, has lagged behind. There's been little in the way of national policy, education campaigns, or diplomatic engagement to directly address the problem. And so the negative trends continue, both in reality and in perception. Global visa policies themselves are not neutral. They favor the wealthy, the politically influential, and the globally powerful. The West sets the rules, and countries like India have to play along. That's not a fair system. It's a system of structural inequality that some have rightly called a form of global apartheid. But unfair systems don't mean automatic innocence. Even within this unequal structure, countries can and must take steps to improve their standing. Because right now, India is losing ground. India's poor global reputation as a travel origin isn't just bad for tourism. It's bad for diplomacy, business, education, and influence. When your citizens are seen as a liability at immigration counters, your passport loses value. Your universities struggle to get international partnerships. Your businesses face bias. And your diplomats enter conversations from a place of disadvantage. All of this can change, but it won't change on its own. India needs a national reckoning on how it prepares its citizens to travel the world. That means public education campaigns, not just at airports, but in schools, on TV, and online. Campaigns that focus on respecting foreign laws, observing cultural norms, and upholding behavior that reflects positively on the country. It also means accountability. Just as China blacklists its own citizens for misconduct abroad, India should introduce consequences, public and legal, for those who damage its global image. Misconduct isn't just a personal issue. It's a national one. Beyond discipline, India must invest in cultural diplomacy. The world needs to see more than viral videos and overstayed visas. It needs to see India's intellectuals, artists, innovators, and diplomats leading global conversations, not scrambling to fix the fallout of tourist misconduct and visa fraud. Soft power matters. And right now, India is failing to wield effectively. While countries like South Korea are exporting K-pop and culinary culture, and Japan is earning global goodwill through design, hospitality, and etiquette, India's cultural export strategy feels disjointed, driven more by luck than by policy. There's no question the global visa system is broken. But waiting for fairness isn't a strategy. It's a trap. India must act within the system it exists in, and push diplomatically to reform it over time. To do that, India has to be seen as a country of integrity, one that respects international norms and teaches its citizens to be global ambassadors, not liabilities. That's the way out of this crisis. Because what's happening now isn't just a bad year or two. It's a long-term reputational decline that, if left unchecked, could take a generation to undo. And for the millions of honest, respectful Indian travelers who suffer the consequences of others' behavior, that is deeply unfair. They pay the price in money, time, and dignity for actions they didn't commit. But without systemic reform, education, and cultural investment, that price will only... If this breakdown gave you a new perspective, hit the like button so more people can see what's really going on. Share it with someone planning to travel abroad, especially if they've had a visa rejection or a bad experience. Comment below with your own story. We want to hear what it's really like for Indian travelers today. And subscribe if you believe it's time India stepped up, took responsibility, and earned the respect it deserves on the global stage. Because respect isn't given. It's built. And right now, it's time to start building. Respect isn't built in embassies or consulates. It's built in hotel lobbies, airports, public squares, and subway platforms. It's built when tourists represent their country with humility, not entitlement. And for India, that reality is hitting hard in 2024. Because right now, Indian travelers are being judged not just for where they're going, but for what they're bringing with them, behaviors, baggage, and a reputation that's becoming harder to shake. Let's go back to those visa rejections. Over 136 billion Indian rupees lost in Schengen application fees. That's not a typo. It's not petty cash. That's a staggering amount of money poured into a system that didn't even offer the courtesy of a refund. For Indian citizens, it's a harsh financial and emotional slap. You apply, you wait, and in the end, you get nothing. No explanation. No appeal. Just another rejection added to the pile. And the Western world? It doesn't flinch, because they've built a system where they hold all the cards. Indian travelers, regardless of their purpose, business, education, tourism, are forced to navigate a maze of bureaucracy designed to keep them out unless proven otherwise. The presumption is guilt, that you're going to overstay, that you're going to abuse the system, that you're not to be trusted. That narrative is already written, and it's being reinforced every time there's a spike in illegal immigration, every time another overstayer gets caught, every time a social media post shows disrespectful behavior by Indian tourists abroad. That's the trap. One bad actor makes the headlines. 10,000 responsible tourists suffer the consequences. And without intervention, that cycle will continue. Take Canada. Indian students and workers have become a major part of the immigration ecosystem. But with that volume has come scrutiny. A rise in asylum claims from Indian nationals has sparked backlash. Visa fraud scandals involving fake college admissions have further damaged trust. And it's not just officials who are noticing. Employers, landlords, and universities are starting to tighten access, layer on requirements, or in some cases, quietly turn applicants away. Even in countries where Indian communities have been long established, tolerance is thinning, not because the people changed, but because the numbers did. Volume matters. And when a flood of tourists arrives without the corresponding cultural awareness or behavioral responsibility, resentment builds. Quietly at first, then openly. This is why cultural education isn't optional. It's urgent. It's why India can't rely on incredible tourism ads while the behavior of its travelers tells another story. If the government is serious about protecting its citizens' ability to travel freely, then it needs to do more than stamp passports. It needs to prepare its people to be ambassadors of the nation. That means teaching global etiquette, understanding host country norms, respecting dress codes, learning how to engage without offending. These aren't elitist requirements. They're the basic expectations of any functioning global citizen. There's also a hard conversation to be had about entitlement. The idea that paying for a trip gives someone the right to treat other cultures as secondary is one of the fastest ways to get rejected. Not just at the visa counter, but in people's hearts and minds. A tourist is a guest. And if Indian tourists want to be welcomed, they must act like guests, not conquerors. And yet, the entire burden cannot fall on the individual traveler. The Indian state also bears responsibility, because the treatment of foreigners within India has been, in many cases, abysmal. From scams at airports to aggressive vendors, from harassment reports to a lack of tourist safety, India has a serious hospitality problem, and the world is watching. When foreign tourists feel unsafe or disrespected in India, it undermines every diplomatic statement, every cultural showcase, every trade mission. It tells the world, this country doesn't practice what it preaches. That contradiction costs more than just tourism dollars. It costs trust. Soft power is about consistency. South Korea didn't become a cultural juggernaut because of chance. It invested strategically in everything from music to fashion to hospitality. Japan did the same through design, service culture, and international outreach. India? It's sitting on thousands of years of culture, diversity, and talent, but has yet to convert that into consistent global influence. There's no strategy, no coordinated effort, no sense of urgency. And in a world where perception moves faster than reality, that's a dangerous gap to leave wide open. The solution isn't performative. It's systemic. India needs a national initiative focused on global image management. That includes tourism codes of conduct. It includes collaboration with airlines, travel agencies, and embassies. It includes advertising campaigns that don't just promote destinations, but promote behavior. It means partnerships with host countries to facilitate better understanding, not just lobbying for easier visas, while ignoring the reasons they're being denied. It also requires confronting internal policy contradictions. For example, if India wants to demand better treatment of its citizens abroad, it must radically improve how it treats foreign citizens within its own borders. That's not just moral consistency, it's geopolitical leverage. Soft power comes from integrity, not just GDP. And if this feels overwhelming, remember, other countries have done it. China was once the butt of every bad tourist headline. Not anymore. Why? Because it cracked down on misconduct. It introduced blacklists. It educated its citizens before they left the country. It worked because it took the issue seriously. It didn't just complain about unfair treatment. It fixed what it could control. India has every resource to do the same. But it has to start seeing this as a crisis, not a PR inconvenience, because the stakes are bigger than tourism. They're about dignity, sovereignty, global respect. And right now, the world's perception of India is hardening, and not in a favorable direction. Reputations are hard to build, easy to lose, and almost impossible to repair once damaged beyond a certain point. Every rejection, every complaint, every viral video chips away at something larger than the individual. It chips away at trust. And once trust is gone, even a spotless application won't be enough. Even the best-behaved tourists will carry the baggage of what came before them. That's the urgency here. India is not powerless. It can rewrite the narrative, but only through honesty, accountability, and action. Because here's the bottom line. India cannot afford to keep losing the global perception battle, not when its people are the ones paying the price in lost money, lost opportunity, and lost dignity. Every time a student is denied a visa despite having all their documents, every time a tourist gets interrogated at immigration just for holding an Indian passport, every time an entire tour group gets treated with suspicion before even stepping off the plane, that isn't just an inconvenience, it's a warning. A warning that the world is starting to see India less as a rising global partner and more as a source of complication. That's a dangerous narrative. And the most infuriating part is, it doesn't have to be this way. India has the talent, the ambition, the cultural richness, the demographic advantage. But it keeps tripping over its own feet when it comes to how its citizens behave abroad and how it handles its own foreign guests at home. It wants the world's respect, but too often refuses to meet the basic expectations that come with global responsibility. Let's be very clear. Not all Indian tourists behave poorly. In fact, the vast majority are respectful, law-abiding, and eager to experience the world. But that doesn't matter when perception has already been poisoned by a loud, visible minority. In the court of global public opinion, perception outweighs data. You don't get judged by the number of travelers who followed the rules. You get judged by the number of headlines, complaints, and bad experiences that went viral. One video of someone defacing a historical monument in a foreign country gets millions of views. 100 respectful visits go unnoticed. That's the scale of the challenge India is up against. And pretending it doesn't exist is no longer an option. Indian authorities need to wake up to this reality. That means more than vague public service announcements or feel-good tourism ads. It means implementing clear conduct guidelines, making cultural etiquette part of school curriculum, broadcasting behavioral expectations in airports, consulates, and even on travel booking websites. Because you can't demand global respect if you're not preparing your citizens to earn it. And yes, the global visa system is unjust. It is rigged to favor wealthier, whiter, more politically powerful countries. That's not a conspiracy theory. It's structural inequality. Indian travelers are scrutinized not because of who they are as individuals, but because of where they come from. The bias is real. And fighting that bias requires more than outrage. It requires strategy. You dismantle global prejudice not by ignoring it, but by refusing to give it ammunition. You fight systemic discrimination by elevating behavior, by building alliances, by being the guest that every country wants to welcome back. That's how reputations change. Not overnight, but step by step, trip by trip, action by action. It's also about consistency at home. India cannot ask for fairness abroad while ignoring the unfairness it allows within its own borders. Foreigners visiting India have repeatedly reported exploitation, from rigged taxi fares and dishonest tour guides to more serious safety concerns and sexual harassment. These are not isolated incidents. They are warning signs. If you want your people treated better overseas, your own tourism experience must reflect respect, safety, and hospitality. Right now, there's a credibility gap, a contradiction between what India wants to be seen as a booming, modern, culturally rich superpower and what people are experiencing, both inside and outside its borders. Close that gap, and the narrative begins to shift. But it will take national coordination, not just wishful thinking. Think about what India could do if it got serious about this. Launch a dedicated tourism conduct and education bureau. Partner with embassies to run mandatory traveler orientation sessions. Create a digital blacklist for repeat offenders. Incentivize good behavior with rewards and penalize disrespect. Show the world that India doesn't just care about how it is treated, but also how it behaves. Because here's the truth: perception is policy. And the longer India allows negative perceptions to go unchallenged, the tighter the borders will become, the harder the travel will get, and the louder the global criticism will grow. Right now, there's still time to course correct, but not much. This isn't just about visas. It's about sovereignty. It's about India's place in the world, and whether it will be seen as a country that contributes to global progress or complicates it. The choice is clear, but the action must be bold. If you agree that India needs to address this crisis head-on, hit that like button. Share this video with someone who's been affected, whether they face a visa rejection or had a rough travel experience abroad. Comment below with your own thoughts, what needs to change and who needs to act. And subscribe to this channel for deeper dives on the issues that matter, the conversations too many people are avoiding, because this is bigger than tourism. This is about national character, and whether we protect it or let it fade under the weight of denial,